It is good to have with me today Roy Worley. Roy, how are you this morning?
Hey, doing well, my friend. How are you?
I'm doing good. Nice to talk to you. And just by way of introduction, Roy and I recently became acquainted, became friends, actually through my recent audiobook seminar that I held in October here in the Chicago area. Roy attended and has become a fast track success story. And Roy, among other things, I think you'll be an inspiration to anybody who watches this video. So it's great to talk to you. Thanks for taking the time out of hopefully a busy recording schedule to to talk with me today.
Well, yeah, it's never busy enough, right?
And never be, regardless of how busy you are, especially when you're self-employed, it's always like, well, what's lined up for tomorrow?
That's
Regardless of
exactly
how busy
right.
I am today, what's booked for tomorrow? My wife
Yeah.
tends to ask me that every night, by the way, before I go to bed. So, what do you have booked for tomorrow?
Yeah, that's a good question for wives to ask.
Now, Roy, tell me a little bit. Give me your story leading up to getting into the voiceover business, because I mean, you really are a rookie. I mean,
Yeah, very much
you're a
so.
brand. Even though you've done some really great work, and we'll talk more about that. But can you just share just a little bit about your background and what brings you to what you're doing today?
hmm Well, I've been in pastoral ministry and served as a missionary overseas and well, actually in South America. My wife and I were missionaries for a little while, so we're bilingual, speaking Spanish, that is. And back in the spring of last year, I guess we should say now, since this is the 2nd of January, found myself in a big transition and continue in ministry, but not in a paid capacity. And thought, well, that's a new trek for me, a new avenue. I'm liking it. I like being self-employed. Tried a couple of things, selling cars. I am not cut out to be a car salesman. Let me tell you.
That's gonna be a
That's
tough gig.
Yeah, we won't even go there. But somewhere along the line, I just felt that God would bless me if I stepped out on faith, and I did, and decided to go into voiceover. I've been told that I have a decent voice. I've also been told I have a face for radio. So I don't know if you really want to video this thing.
Perfect combination.
At any rate, a couple of pastor friends had been praying with me about this, thinking about it. We talked about it. And then one Saturday morning, I got a text from my good buddy Tim, I'm now serving as a co-pastor in a new church with. And he said, "Hey, I heard this guy Bill DeWeese on WONU advertising an audiobook seminar that's coming up. And I don't know if you're interested in that." And I thought, well, anything in the voiceover world is something I should explore. So I went to your website that he had texted me and put in my information. And it didn't seem like it was taking my payment. And I was concerned that I had a seat at the table. So I called you and left a voicemail. And within 5 minutes, you called right back and said, "Yeah, come on down, and let's, be assured," you said, "that I had a seat at the table." So we spent the day in the studios of WONU, and I think it's called Shine 89 now, and a place where I understand you used to teach.
That's right.
And
Yeah, it's a university-owned radio station.
yeah, and so man, I have no frame of reference other than listening to a radio of the voiceover world. Now, the irony is when I started in college, I started majoring in radio, TV, and film, and actually worked in the campus radio station for a short time.
Oh, I did not know
Uh,
that.
yeah, it was just a Friday night's 3-hour spot doing at one time some very heavy rock and roll stuff, and another time some pop radio stuff. And enjoyed it, but when I sensed that I was going into ministry, I made a mistake and got out of that and changed majors and lost a bunch of hours and so on and so forth. All the dumb things we
As
do,
most
right?
students do at some point along the line, right?
And here I am, 55, and coming full circle back into the voiceover industry, if not the broadcast industry. And so to get back on track here, spent the day with you and goodness, how many other people? 20 people or 25, something like
Well,
that.
it was a room full.
Yeah, a lot
Yeah.
of people. And some of them veterans in the business and just trying to find out how to either get into audiobooks or to improve what they were already doing.
Right,
And so before I got to that seminar back in October, I believe it was,
right.
I signed up for an account with ACX. And which, of course, was I learned through you that it was actually put together by Amazon.com, who created Audible.com, and ACX, I believe, stands for Audiobook Creation Exchange.
Right.
And it's kind of an electronics crossroads meeting house, if you will, for narrators and publishers and authors and that kind of thing. So after the seminar, it took me about a month to really start auditioning seriously. I was trying to get my equipment together, and I had to build my sound booth here in my basement and that kind of thing. And I just walked away from car sales. It was the greatest day of my life, and started auditioning. So that's kind of brings us up to the present.
Well, first of all, I think there's something really important to point out, and that is, and this is what I love so much about audiobook narration, is that you can bring the experience that you have to the table.
Uh-huh.
And a lot of people sell themselves short, and they think it's strictly having a great voice, which, by the way, you do have a very rich, warm voice. But if that is all you had going for you, you wouldn't be marketable as an audiobook narrator. Yeah. What you have on top of that is you can tell stories. And really, when you boil it down to its essence, almost all voiceover work, regardless if it's narrating audiobooks or even commercials, you're telling stories. I mean, that's what you were doing. You're telling a story.
Exactly.
And so you have a background as a pastor. So your background is as a professional storyteller.
Exactly.
Of sorts.
Yeah, that's right.
If you're a school teacher or even just a parent or grandparent who has told stories to kids, you have a frame of reference for narrating audiobooks. So almost regardless of what your background is, most people have some frame of reference for telling stories in some context or another. So that's one of the great things I thought for you. I mean, this is what you had done. So it was just a matter of really tapping into what you already knew how to do to bring it, to bring it to audiobooks. So let's talk. Give for me what do you believe were your secrets to success? I mean, what is it that you learned, be it either at the audiobook seminar or just along the way through your experience in trying? What were the most important keys to you? You've booked what? How many jobs now? Two?
2 books. I have two contracts, if you want to call it that, audiobooks pending.
And you've also recorded some other, like a commercial project recently as well for Eddie Z's Blinds.
I did a Black Friday commercial, and it marketed in Chicago and some places in Wisconsin, I think.
So you've really seen some quick success along the way. So I think anything you have to share is going to be valuable here.
Okay.
So what for you do you think were the keys to your success in doing what you've done so far? And knowing really, I mean, you're really just out of the gate. You've got so much more to accomplish in the days and weeks and years to come.
Well, I have to say that, I just, from a faith perspective, I prayed about this, and I believe that God was leading me in this direction. So I have to give credit where credit is due and want to do that. But, I mean, having a nice voice is a good thing, but you can't take credit for it. It's a gift or it's not. And as you said, in my trek, it's been a very short one. Last fall, I sat in on a voice gym class in the Chicago area, young woman leading that class, and heard some people with nice voices, but just didn't have the ability to tell the story. 1 or 3 out of 4 did. The one lady, bless her heart, she struggled. Beautiful voice, just gorgeous speaking voice, very clear. And didn't have it. And so that, I learned from that. I didn't take the voice gym class, but I did learn from that experience and said, hey, a good voice is not enough. You've got to be able to listen and to take coaching. And one of the things I knew is that I had to get some coaching in this industry. And that's where I signed up. One of the reasons I signed up for the audiobook class, and you did some coaching for the big class, and then later on I asked you to help me in some coaching in the production of my commercial demo.
And we recently recorded your which, by the way, I think you did an outstanding job. I'll be very excited to see what doors that opens for you.
Me too. My website's still under construction. I have a friend that's working on it, so if he doesn't get it done by today, I'm going to just say, hey, thanks, but I'm going to try this on my own, get it going. That's my main marketing tool, and I'm kind of chomping at the bits about that. But as far as things that I learned, I realized that I had to have some instruction. I had to be teachable in this. And when we made the commercial demo in your studio, one of the things that was the biggest encouragement to me is your direction, because not only did you tell me how to do things and intonation and things like that, but just that word of encouragement when you said, you take direction well. If I hadn't heard that and hadn't had that attitude, I don't think I would be able to have any kind of success in this or any other business for that matter. I think we have to be able to take instruction. And so I think that's key. And I've not only taken instruction from you, but a friend that got me the gig with Eddie Z's is also a marketing director in a local hospital. And I've done some work for him and the hospital. voiceover for a video they did for a 100-year gala celebration of that hospital, as well as website audio and those kinds of things. So I think, having a teachable spirit, seeking out some coaching. As a matter of fact, very interesting. I was at a open house on New Year's Eve in my buddy Tim's house, who's a co-pastor, and he had opened it up for a lot of people. And one of the guys that goes to our church is this giant police officer. He's 6 feet 8 inches tall. And he overheard me talking to somebody who asked, well, what do you do? And I said, well, I'm just getting into the voiceover industry. I've got a long way to go, but here are some things that I've done. So then, we milled around, and I came back to the table where he was seated. And he said, man, you have got to talk to me about this, because for 2 years, I've been thinking about getting into voiceover. And somebody had, not just somebody, but several people had told him, hey, you've got a decent voice, you ought to try that. And he said, and this kind of relates to the thing about a teachable spirit. He said, now, how did you hook up with this guy? Because I told him about you. And I told him the story of going to the seminar and everything. He said, well, now, is he, just taking advantage of people and taking their money, or is he really helping you? I said, no, he's really helping. And he said, well, would he tell somebody if they really couldn't cut it? And I said, if you ask him, he'll tell you. And because I've heard you say that, you need to get a professional to tell you whether or not you might have potential in the voiceover industry. And so, maybe he'll come to your seminar, in February. You'll recognize. I hope
so.
You'll recognize him. He'll be the guy ducking to get in the door.
And I'll work him over really well.
Yeah. I hope he does. And my friend Tim, excuse me, has a very pleasant voice, and he's been telling stories as a pastor for a long time. And I suggested he consider going with ACX and at least auditioning and right. Finding out. Told him also about the seminar. The seminar was very helpful because for someone like me, who had no frame of reference, no experience whatsoever, it was a fantastic introduction, not only to the world of audiobooks and how important it is as far as the up and coming trend in the voiceover world, which I would not have known on my own, but also how to audition, how to even use the audio software, which in this case was Adobe Audition. And because that's what I was introduced to in your seminar, that's what I ended up obtaining. And it was really neat because I would not have had any idea. I'm not a techie. I mean, when we were getting ready to record this and you were kind of adjusting all your things and, computers and knobs and whistles, I'm thinking, man, get a hammer, because that's the only way to fix a computer.
I was about ready to get a hammer. I'll tell you that.
That's the only thing I know as far as technical stuff. And so just being introduced to the software and being shown how to take out mistakes, how to do pickups, how to recognize mouth noise and edit that. Even though we didn't spend much time, maybe an hour on that, it was invaluable to me because it gave me a level of confidence to get in, to look at it and say, okay, well, I think I can learn this. Yeah. I've got a lot to learn in that area. I want to be able to do my own mastering, and I'm getting there.
And it's all a work in progress. Yeah. And it doesn't matter how many years you've done it either. You continue. And I was in radio for 25 years and now in voiceovers for 5 full time. And still finding and trying to find new ways and better ways to do the things that I've done for so long. And as I talk to people who've done this longer than I've done it, the people who succeed are the ones who are always trying to improve and move forward.
Well, absolutely.
And you pointed out some really important stuff, and I think it's important, especially for those who are getting involved in the business. And I hope this is what you take away from Roy. And Roy, you really hit this point hard, and it's important. One is to be able to take direction and instruction. Mm-hmm. I tell you, that's the thing that I strive for in my own career. I was maybe more than anything else. I had a recording session in Chicago at a studio week right before Christmas. It was for national spots for a healthcare provider, and there were 6 agency people sitting outside the studio watching and critiquing and giving feedback. There's nothing like a recording session by committee. And actually, it was a lot. They were very nice people, and
Wow.
it was a lot of fun. But it's when you see six people sitting on the other side of the glass, listening to your every
Yeah.
nuance of every word, it can be a little intimidating. But when I left the studio, the thing that she told me, she said, you take direction really well.
Yeah.
And that, I think, if you strive for that above anything else, not to try to be perfect, but to try to take what you've done and then take the direction and mold it and shape it to what the client wants. That's a big key to success. So
Hmm.
take that away. Take away the fact that it's not just Roy's voice, and Roy does have a great voice. I mean, you have a great, rich, warm voice, but as we pointed out, if that's all you had, you couldn't have a career. You have the
Hmm.
ability to tell a story. And there are plenty of great communicators out there who do not have attractive voices that are very successful. It's because they're great storytellers. And the other thing is you've done all of the right things, the things that people who tend not to succeed don't do. For instance, you set up a great studio. Right now you're sitting in your recording space that you've
Hmm.
set up in your basement. You've got the proper equipment. You're learning, and it's a work in progress. You're learning how to use the editing and recording software. You recorded your demo,
Hmm.
and a lot of people go out there and they try to make something happen before they ever have the tools to make it happen. And you've done that right. So you're doing all of the right things. And
Well,
again,
let me interject something at this point where the demo is concerned, because when you go out there and you're trying to do things, I attempted to go to a local studio in town, young man who's got a studio in his house. It's a really fantastic studio. He's in his 20s. I've got kids his age, and he's been doing this for 13 years, he said. So I thought, man, he started at 12. He probably knows a lot of stuff. But he really does a lot of recording for bands, for musicians.
right.
So, we went in there, and I didn't know diddly, and I just made up some scripts because I was concerned about copyright infringement things and that kind of stuff. So we just made some demos, and the sound quality was okay, I thought. And this goes back to that guy asking, hey, will Bill tell you whether you got it or not, or will he critique you honestly? And so I had you listen to my demo, and you said, Roy, I got to be honest, you really need to start over on that thing. And that's exactly the kind of input that I needed, because it was not up to par. It was not up to professional quality. And what ended up coming out of my session with you was something that was acceptable by an industry standard. It was done in a professional studio with an experienced person in the voiceover industry, and it had musical background too, which my other demo did not have. And so, you learn. Well, hopefully, because if I'm not learning, I'm not gonna be able to pay the bills at the end of the month.
Right, right,
And
right,
that's
right.
the goal here. That's really the goal.
When you boil it down, it really, I mean, as fun as it is to do this, and it is fun, and it's a creative
Yeah,
outlet. But as I said before, if you're not making money, you don't have a voiceover business, you have a voiceover hobby, and there's nothing wrong with
that's
that if
right.
you don't have bills to pay and you just enjoy doing that. But for most of us,
Yeah,
this is what
yeah,
we count on to support our families.
exactly right, exactly right. And so, it's kind of funny because I also signed up for Voice 123, and I've done now 7 auditions with Voice 123, and the one that I actually got response on, and they'd like to hire me if we can come to agreement on a price, was a John Wayne impersonation for a sales
I
group of
love
people,
that.
which is nuts. The only reason that I went ahead and auditioned for that is because Voice 123, the SmartCast 123, is a program that has an algorithm which looks at patterns, and a part of that is, as I understand it from my reading at the website itself, is that if you don't audition for some of these things, then the program will think, if they can think, that you're not really serious about it, and so on and so forth.
Right.
And so I thought, I'm going to audition for this thing. And they wanted you to make up your own script, which was nuts. And I thought, well, I'm going to do it just to do it. So I told my wife, I said, I'll never hear anything from these people. I actually got the gig if we can agree on a price, which is crazy.
You never
Hey,
know. And it just also goes to show that there are as many types of jobs out there as you can
yeah,
possibly imagine. And people say,
is
well, there's just no voiceover work. Oh, there's plenty of work. It's just,
yeah.
knowing where to find it and then being able to, like, for instance, I think would be a perfect fit for a project like that, whereas I could never get by with that.
Yeah, well, and I can't do things you can do, and that's what
And
my
that's
grandmother. My grandmother used to say. It takes all kinds of people to make a world.
It does, and I've heard somebody once say it doesn't take all kinds; there just are. But regardless of which side of the fence you fall, I lost one of my
Well,
favorite
yeah, they
sayings.
just are. Maybe
They,
that's
they just
a
are.
better modification of the statement. I don't know.
But the
That's
point
good.
is, there are things that as you're watching this, that you're suitable for that we're not, and the part of the process, and actually we did this at the audiobook seminar, was identifying your niche and your strengths and
Mhm.
where you can shine and excel. And once you learn where to put yourself into the marketplace, where you can shine and be competitive, then just like Roy here, you begin to get work. And success builds upon success. It becomes an upward spiral because it builds confidence. You begin to better learn how to, again, position yourself and market yourself within the industry. And Roy, again, I think you're a shining example of that, and a great inspiration. Especially, I mean, you're just out of the gate. I mean, you just started, and look at you already. You did a big Chicago regional TV campaign. Or TV or radio or both, I'm not sure, but I mean, it
It was
doesn't matter.
television, yeah.
It's a high-profile advertiser here in this
Hmm.
particular region, and you've got a couple audiobooks in your belt. You're negotiating now for a John Wayne part, which I
That's
think is
crazy. Yeah.
outstanding. So, thanks for sharing your
You bet.
perspective, your insights, and I think there are important lessons to take away from this, especially if you're just starting off in the voiceover business, or if you've been doing it for a while and say, I'm not getting work. Why? Well, if I were you, I'd go back and listen to this interview again, and I've got a feeling you'll pick up some things that Roy mentioned that perhaps that you're not implementing. And since we were talking about the seminar, Roy, I should mention briefly here that there
Hmm.
still are seats available on February 4th and 5th. That's a Friday. I'm sorry, it's a Saturday and Sunday. And the biggest piece of feedback that I got from the workshop that we did in October was that it should be 2 days instead of one,
Hmm.
so
Yeah.
that we can do a deeper dive into all of those areas. So that's exactly what we've done. And everybody who attends will leave with their own audiobook demo as well. So that's a new addition. And
If I may just add to that, one of the things I don't think we mentioned is that I did a lot of auditioning at ACX. I've auditioned for about 21 books. And you go through there, and they're all different genre and things. And I've done for nonfiction and historical, and the two books that I actually got contracts for. One was they were looking for somebody with a cowboy voice, and I'm from the South, if you haven't picked that up yet. And I can really turn on the redneck if I need to. And I got the gig for this short novel that wanted a cowboy sounding voice. And then the other one was a Civil War uh, document or piece, a guide written on the strategy of Ulysses S. Grant.
hmm,
And even though he's a
interesting.
Midwesterner, I mean, those things are fun, and you do find where your strengths are and where
Yeah.
your niches are. I mean, I'm not going to get any auditions. I'm not even going to audition for the Cheetah Girl books. I mean, those just
Good
first
call.
of all, wrong gender and wrong age group and that kind of thing. So anyway, I think
That's
it's
great.
been fun finding that niche is what I really wanted to say.
Yeah, yeah, and I can tell you're having a lot of fun with it. And part of that
Hmm.
is because you're doing the right stuff. When you do the right things, it
Well, good.
becomes fun because it doesn't become an exercise in frustration and futility. You're not banging your head against a brick wall. You're actually doing stuff that will move you forward. So,
Yeah.
Roy, it'll be fun staying in touch with you. All the best to you in your developing
Same to
career.
you.
And yeah, I appreciate the time today and for you sharing information that'll be a big help to a lot of people. So, happy New Year and much success in
Thank you,
2012.
Bill. Same to you.